Hello, my name is Hilda Mali, and today I'll be talking about the Cold War that lasted from the end of the 40s until the beginning of the 90s. After World War II, the US and the USSR were the only two nations with any power left. The United States was a lot stronger. They had atomic weapons for starters, and also the Soviets had lost over 20 million people in the way, and they were led by Joseph Stalin. So at the end of World War II, the USSR encouraged the creation of pro-communist governments in Bulgaria, Romania, and Poland. On the other hand, United States was a supporter of capitalism. The conflict of interest between both nations and their incompatible economic systems led to an era of constant tension in the field of international relations. Each one of the superpowers fought for supremacy, establishing strategic military blocs and spheres of influence. Suddenly, a large number of nations found themselves caught in between the two nations. On various occasions, the Cold War resulted in diverse local military conflicts such as in Korea 1950 to 1953 and Vietnam 1959 to 1975, leaving a trail of violence and instability that even today has repercussions among various people around the globe. The Cold War led to a lot of discoveries and events, such as the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962, the founding of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in 1949, the Warsaw Pact in the Soviet Union, the successful launching of the first artificial satellite in its history into space, Sputnik 1957, and the landing of the first man in the moon in 1969 by the United States. In common usage, the term Cold War refers to a war that consists of indirect conflict rather than direct conflict, a war with casualties but no battles or armed fighting. Capitalized, it refers to the state of affairs between the US and USSR from 1945 until the late 1980s, marked by espionage, proxy wars, an arms race, a space race, and continual propaganda. However, the term in its original usage in the 14th century by Don Juan Manuel, a Cold War meant a war without victory or honor. He was specifically considering the Christian Islamic conflict of that time. Now that we have talked about the movement, we should pass to explain the main economic systems that characterize this period: socialism and capitalism. What is capitalism? Well, it is a relatively new social system that came into existence due to the thought of Marx and Engels expressed under Communist Manifesto. Under this system, the means for producing and distributing goods are owned by a small minority of people. We refer to this group as the capitalist class. The majority of people must sell their ability to work in return of a wage or salary. The working class are paid to produce goods and services which are then sold for a profit. This profit is reinvested by the capitalists. In this economic model, the motive for producing goods and services is to sell them for a profit, not to satisfy any people's good needs. Whereas, socialism refers to the collective ownership of the goods of a country. It means the production to satisfy human needs. For individuals, socialism means an end to the economic insecurity and exploitation. In this model, a democratic control is established. It is said that we owe this system to the French Henri de Saint-Simon, who envisioned the ideal society as one large factory. Another exponents of this economic system were Claude de Rouvreux, Carlos Fourier, Louis Blanc, Pedro de José Proudhon, et Robert Owen. Hello, my name is Hilda. I'm a student of Contemporary World. Today I will conduct an interview with Professor Alfonso Barraza. Good evening, Professor. How are you?
Good evening. Fine. And you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay.
Today we'll be talking about the Cold War.
Cold War, yes.
Do you know what countries were the world leaders during this period?
Yes. Well, basically, the Cold War was a continuing struggle as a result of the Second World War, and the main countries involved, the big countries involved, were the United States and the USSR.
Why do you think countries who were allies during the war became enemies afterwards?
Because the main reason was that these two countries were, to some extent, to say it in one way, the winners of this war. Okay, so they became the leaders, and as leaders, they were seeking to have the land and to have the resources that were the result of the war. Okay.
And did you know where did the Cold War took place?
Well, it didn't take place in any specific place. Okay, if the two main countries were involved, well, this means that it was the United States and Russia, what was known as the USSR. But mainly there was a lot of tension in countries like, in different countries of Europe, Latin America. A typical example is Cuba, for example. And it took place mainly in countries that had different economic systems, which mainly was the capitalistic system represented by the United States and its allies, and the socialism system, which was mainly represented by the USSR. In Latin America, as I mentioned, Cuba was a country that took this system, and which has always been in tension with the United States and other countries as well.
And what do you think about the opinion of the general public about the war?
Well, in these times, one of the main characteristics of the Cold War was the threat for a nuclear war. During all these years, we always had we always had fear. Well, they had fear that we would have a third world war with atomic or nuclear weapons. So the general public's opinion was of a fear. Everybody wanted peace. Most of the people were seeking for peace, for better relationship, because if this doesn't exist, because we're always in the danger of war. Okay, that's my opinion.
And can you mention some weapons that were available for?
Well, the countries had access to all the weapons, including tanks and airplanes and nuclear bombs and submarines and all kinds of guns, and everything was available.
Thank you very much. It's the end of the interview.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
The Cold War defined the differences between who were allied with and who were against. It was the differences between democracy and totalitarianism. It was whether communism or capitalism was preferable. It caused a lot of unnecessary tension during decades that could be easily solved through dialogue. I believe capitalism is not the best economic system, neither socialism, because on the first it is hard to succeed and you are probably be exposed to exploitation and lack of opportunities. But in the second, the lack of opportunities is also present. You cannot improve in your working area. For me, the perfect economic system will be the balance of both of these models.